One of the political initiatives that every Christian should undertake is political participation as well as integration into society, while respecting their identity as a Christian. This can be a difficult balance to make sometimes, but it's one that we should all undertake as Copts, and one that we should be constantly striving towards making in any society that we live in. This is a difficult balance, like I said. So today with us to discuss how to make this difficult balance is Mina Riyad. Mina is a Bachelor of Engineering at Carleton University. He's a Master's of Engineering Management at the University of Ottawa. He's also a blogger and involved in various political initiatives. Mina, thank you for joining us today. I guess the first question in terms of the church's participation in particular is the political responsibilities that are placed on the Pope. Talking, of course, about the Pope of the Coptic Orthodox Church. What are those political responsibilities?
In simple words, none. Nothing. Zero responsibility. The Pope shouldn't have any political role. He's just a spiritual leader. The church is a spiritual organization and shouldn't be involved in politics at all.
But I think you would agree with me that there are certain political responsibilities placed on him, and that's probably because of the political atmosphere, especially in Egypt. How did it get to that point? How did it get to be such a big political responsibility?
Well, there are different reasons. Like it's like, as you know, like any historical phenomenon, like has its reason. It's never one reason where like people say, okay, this is what happened and this was the reason. There's many different factors that led into the situation we are in right now. I would say three main factors. I would start with the first one, which I think is the most important, which is the role of the state itself. We've been living in a failed state for years, and what I mean by a failed state is like the state cannot fulfill its basic responsibilities towards its citizens. So the state has some resources, and it has to decide how it's going to use those resources to actually fulfill its duties. And in the past, all the people that have been in power in the past 40 years, 50 years, wherever, have chosen to use those resources mainly to sustain their police state and to sustain their power and to make sure that they stay in power forever. So what happened is that like they didn't have enough money or resources to actually help the citizens. So in that sort of atmosphere, when someone comes and like when the state in a way tries to find someone to take care of its own citizens, like you take care of these, you take care of these because I don't have enough time or resources to do this. So they found the easiest way was just to leave those Copts with the church and let the church take responsibilities of them. And that, for many reasons, that was a very good deal for the state in general. First, they don't have to care about those people, so they can, like, it's one less problem to take care of. Second thing, it's much easier to deal with one person instead of dealing with like 10 million people or 8 million people or wherever, however number Copts are. So they're like, we're gonna deal with the Pope, we're gonna have our own discussions with him, and that's gonna solve all the Copts' problem, and we won't have to deal with the people themselves. So that's an easy thing. So that was mainly the problem. That was, in my opinion, the main problem, which was the state. After that comes the church itself, which is, in history, the church has always played a political role. That's not just something that happened in the past 4 years. Of course, it increased, the political role increased in the past 4 years for all those reasons I've just mentioned, but it has always had a political role. And it helped also in the past, especially in the past 4 years with the presence of Pope Shenouda, because of his charisma, because of his personality. It helped play that role as well, because he's actually a very smart politician, if I would say, and it helped to increase the political power of the church during those years. The third factor is also, I think, the rise of political Islam in the 70s, especially when Sadat came to power, which marginalized a little bit Copts in political life in general, and made, in a way, the church feels that it needs to have its own political role to do some balance with political Islam. I think those are the three main reasons that led to what we are right now. There's many different others, but those are the main reasons.
Okay. And back in November of 2012, right after Pope Tawadros II was sort of chosen as the new leader of the Coptic Orthodox Church, he said something I think quite historic in that he would that the church would cease to play that political role in society. Is this necessarily a good thing or a bad thing for the Coptic Church?
It's a great thing. It's a great thing. I hope that's actually what's going to happen. If that's the direction the church is going in, I think that's a very positive thing to do right now. But
some people might say that this is probably a bad time to do it. I mean, like you said, you know, the rise of Islamic extremism since the 70s, all these different factors that have put the church in sort of the hot seat. This has led, if we're looking at it from the grand scheme of things, this would seem like the best time for the church to step up its political role and be more aggressive. So I guess the question is it a bad time for the church to withdraw politically?
I happen to disagree with what you just said. It's a perfect time to withdraw from the political from its political role, and there's so many reasons for that. And I'll just state like there are two, which are like, one is more like an idealistic standpoint, and one is a just practical one. The idealistic one is like you can't preach what you don't practice. We as seculars, or even like I would say even as Copts, like if you talk to any Copt, they will tell you, oh, I don't want to, like I want some sort of separation between the state and religion, because they know if with religion affecting politics in Egypt, that's going to affect them negatively. So most of Copts seem to be kind of secular in Egypt, and so you can't say I want a secular state or a civil state like we call it in Egypt, and at the same time ask the church to play a political role. That's like a little bit sort of double standards. Mm-hmm. That's the idealistic point of view. Some people would say, like you just said, like, but the reality is that there are people on the other side playing politics, and we have to make some sort of balance. So and then comes my second reason, which is the practical one. So like, let's forget about utopia and just talk on the ground. The church has played a political role in the past 4 years, and let's look at the reality. Did it help, or did it actually have a negative effect? I would argue it had a very negative effect on Copts and on the country on itself. There's like some sort of a saying, like in Egypt right now, is like if you there's a candidate for elections and you want to make him lose the election, just like let the church support him. Like this is the reality. This is the reality. Is like, and that's what the church in the past 40 years. I don't know if they haven't been getting it, or maybe they were not able to get out of this political role. But actually, when the church gets involved politically, it hurts whoever it supports, because of the atmosphere we live in Egypt. It's very easy to convince people to vote against the church candidate, or whatever how it's called. And the referendum of the March 19th last year is a great example. Is like it was used actually in telling people you should say yes to the referendum as like, oh, the church, by the way, is saying no. And because the church has openly showed that they are actually against the referendum. So and there were a lot of videos on YouTube showing priests telling people you have to go say no. That was like a piece of cake for us now. So just showing people those videos and telling them, you see, they're doing this, so you have to do the opposite.
So it ends up having like an opposite effect of what the church wants.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, you are a minority, right? So like, yes, you like the Pope or whoever is in power in Egypt has a very strong political presence, because he kind of control, let's say, 8 to 10 million people. But like, if once the church has an opinion, it's very easy to turn the 70 other million people against that opinion, because of the role the church is playing. So it doesn't help at the end of the day. So maybe that's the best time to withdraw from politics.
Now that we're supposedly seeing a withdrawal from politics, I guess the role that Christians or Coptic Christians are going to have to take in Egypt falls on the civilians.
Yeah.
I guess the question now becomes, what is this future Christian political leadership going to look like? Are we going to have sort of the leader of the Christian minority in Egypt, or is it going to look something different?
I don't like the term Christian political leadership. Those two words shouldn't be in the same sentence at all. It should be just how could Christians as Egyptian citizens get involved in politics and play a role. And there's so many channels other than the church. Like the part is I don't get is why does it have to be through the church? There's so many different channels. There's political parties, there's civil society organization, there's the media, there are the street. You can just go to the street, and that's actually something that started happening after the revolution, which is very positive. Is like in the past when Copts or Christians had a problem, they usually went to the cathedral to demonstrate. Right now they go to Tahrir, they go to Maspero, they go to different places where just the rest of Egyptians actually demonstrate when they have a problem or have an issue that they wanna talk about with the state. So that's what should happen. As Copts, we should just get involved in those different channels and play a role.
But there's still a problem in equal representation in different parts of society. I mean, one of the biggest complaints that the Coptic minority has had is that they are underrepresented in major positions of power in Egypt. Some examples, just there aren't enough Christian governors, there aren't enough Christian ministers, there aren't enough Christian deans for universities. The list goes on. But the main complaint is that there isn't enough representation on top of the fact that there's persecution and discrimination. So how can, if you're saying that, you know, the Christian leadership or the Christian participation in civil society at this point should not be Christian based but more Egyptian based, how can Copts expect to advocate for equal rights under this new form of leadership or under this new form of participation?
I think it's like I just said again, it's like all these different channels. This is where you're going to advocate for equal rights. And like the fact having a governor that is Christian or having a minister that's Christian, we had it in the past. It never helped. It never fixed any of the Christian problems, because like if it's not coming from the grassroots, it's just going to be a guy called George or called Mina or called whatever, but he's he's Christian, but like does he have any sort of power? It doesn't have, the question is not to get a Christian in those powers, it's to get a good person, a good politician in those powers, whatever his religion is. That's what we should advocate for. Having a Christian governor or a Christian minister or even a Christian president would never fix the problem. And there's a lot of examples, like Mubarak appointed one time a Christian governor, and based on the people that lived in that government, it was the worst years they lived under any sort of thing. Because
but what's the reason for that? I mean, you expect Christian governors gonna be looking out for Christian interests?
Not necessarily, because of the mentality and because of the environment we live in, they actually could be sometimes actually put in a position where they're like afraid of doing anything for God, because there will be said like, oh, he did this because he's one of them or whatever. So that's why that's not the solution. The solution is being involved in grassroots to get to those positions naturally, and that's the thing. It's not something that's going to happen between like it's going to happen tomorrow. Like look at what happened in the U.S. Like there's still even misrepresentation till today for blacks or wherever, but like you see, like in 34 years, what happened? We have a black president now that he's actually re-elected even. And like when you think about this 30 years ago, it was like it could have been taken as a joke. Like no one would have ever thought that. So it's gonna take time, but you have to do it right. Not just look at the short term and say like, okay, I need two Christians two ministers that are Christian or whatever. That's not going to solve the issue. We've always been doing that during Mubarak time. It never solved one issue for Copts.
So let's assume that tomorrow we find that there's been a Christian minister appointed, and they've been appointed through the grassroots process that you talked about. That they sort of came up naturally into that position of power. What can we, like, assuming this person is selected as Minister of Interior, Vice President, as elected, even elected President, what can we expect from that Christian politician now?
I don't expect anything from that Christian politician as a Christian. I expect from that politician to do whatever should be done for the better of this country. So when we talk about equal rights, it's equal rights for everyone. He's not going to be a minister or a president for Christians to solve that problem. But if we start thinking about the Christian or the Coptic problem as an Egyptian problem and solve the whole issue altogether, naturally Coptic problems are going to be solved because we're just part of Egypt, right? So, but as long as we think of the Coptic problem as a special problem, it's never going to be solved. We have to fix the whole problem altogether, and that's why like I find that like the church loses a lot of credibility. For example, when you ask all the time for equal rights for Copts and whatever, and then representative of the church in the committee that is writing the constitution is the one that actually proposed an article that actually kind of marginalize Egyptian Baha'is and Egyptian atheists and stuff like that. So like it raises the question from a lot of people: is the church actually asking for equal rights, or is just asking for equal rights for Copts? And that's where the problem happens. That's why we have to look at the picture from a wider perspective.
I guess also we have to take into account the role of Copts abroad. And there's a large contingency of Coptic Christians living outside of Egypt, in Canada, the United States, Europe, Australia. There's a very large diaspora, and a lot of people would say that they have a lot to contribute, having lived in those societies for a while, and they can bring a lot to the table, especially as Egypt sort of begins to form its new identity, its new government and everything. So, and Pope Tawadros II stated that. He said that all Egyptians abroad need to be accommodated because they're an extension of Egypt. So what role do you think Copts in particular, Copts living abroad, should play in this new civilian leadership for the Coptic Orthodox Church?
I think it's like you just said. Like I think they have a lot to bring to the table because they have lived in true democracy, so they know what democracy is. They know how it works. That's a plus. Usually they're better off than the people in Egypt, so they are like they have the chance to help, and they have more time. Maybe they're in a much better position to play that role. They're usually more educated. They had a better dedication. So all these things could really help, and they have to play a role. But again, it's through those channels that they have to play a role, not just through the church. And there's a lot of initiatives, like here in Canada, for example, and I'm pretty sure in all different countries that are related to what's happening in Egypt right now. And sadly, when you see it, like you find very minimal participation of Copts in those. So I think that the idea will be to have Copts more involved in those initiatives and playing a role.
So Mina, what are some of the initiatives that Copts abroad can get involved in?
There are many. Like for example, I'm personally involved here in Ottawa with a bunch of other people. We're working with the Stool Party in Egypt, and we started like building like let's say like branches of that party here in Canada. Like there's people work in Montreal, people work in Toronto, in Ottawa, even in Edmonton. And our main goal is to get more people involved, more people to vote in the next elections, because as you all know, like only 10,000 people in Canada registered to vote, and only half of them actually voted in the elections, which is a very low number. So we're trying to get more people involved. There's so many different initiatives. There's an initiative called Peace Medan. They're trying to find sustainable solutions for issues in the Middle East. There's another initiative, I can't remember really the name of it, but like I know that they actually were able to collect $60,000 in one night to help people open small local businesses in Egypt. So there are many. You just need to ask and look out there, and you will find something to be part of, for sure.
Well, that's unfortunately all the time we have today, but thank you for joining us today, Mina.
Thank you for having me.
If you're interested in getting more information about any of the initiatives we discussed today, please be sure to check out our website. For the Rizk Assessment, I'm Rizk, and please make sure to join us as we assess a new topic next.